president had nothing to say tonight about the police shooting of Jacob Blake or the deaths of two protesters in Kenosha. Certainly nothing about the white militia that seemed to be given comfort by the local police. The gunman, who was apparently a Trump supporter, now being charged with multiple felonies, including a homicide. Instead, he called for giving police more power and railed against what he called mob rule. Does this win for the president? CNN political commentators Mike Shields and Angela Rye joined me and Dee Lemon. Angela Rye, do you believe that what's happening in Kenosha can win Wisconsin and maybe the election for the president?
No, what I believe will happen is that the truth will set us free. I think that we are at a time where we can't continue to allow dangerous and toxic rhetoric to not only define this election, but to define this country. We have to tell the truth about what's happening. We have to be bold enough in what we're talking about, even on this air, as bold as the sports players who are sitting down and taking a moment to make demands of their owners, taking a moment to make demands of citizens to not only go vote, but to be responsible with the words they say, with the weapons they carry, and with their words, with the way they treat their neighbors. So I think what we really need to be doing right now is taking a moment to reset, to tell the truth, to be honest about what it means to do the right thing so that everyone wins in the country. Forget about the election for a moment and talk about how we can ensure that everyone survives, whether you subjectively fear them or not.
I'm waiting on you.
On me?
Oh, yeah.
I'm just
That's how co-anchoring works.
I'm just sitting here listening. I think you guys were having a fascinating
Well, then
conversation.
allow me to continue.
Yeah, go on.
Okay.
I'll jump in when I'm ready.
All right. So, Mike, my question is this, that we were getting to a little bit earlier. This is happening on the president's watch. Your counter is, well, Ferguson happened on Obama's watch. Yes, and then they each have culpability. And what becomes the linking thought? You better talk about it. You better cure it. You better help it. It seems here Trump's strategy is to weaponize it.
Well, look, I think it's being weaponized on both sides. I mean, the Democratic convention was an entire 4-day episode of wokeness and comments like, this is what, we want the tone of America to be. And so they are trying to motivate their base, speaking as a political operative, they're trying to take the social injustice movement this summer and turn it into a motivation to turn out base voters in the Democratic Party that may not normally take part. And one of the reasons they have to do that is you talked about cognitive dissonance earlier. Democrats just cannot stand Donald Trump and will go and vote for someone who was against busing, who was for mandatory minimums.
There were a lot of black people
way
who
more
were against
responsible
busing
for
as
locking
well.
up young
There were
black men in jail.
There were a lot of black people who were against busing at the time as well. This is not. It wasn't 2020
mandatory
when busing was
minimums.
happening.
Someone who says racially insensitive things all the time, who says you're not even black if you would vote for a Republican. They're going to put all of that aside because they cannot stand.
This president says a lot of racially insensitive things. So if it's
He
good for the
said some
goose,
stuff
it's good for the gander.
He said some stuff tonight. And you know what, Mike? This is the problem, right? When we started this conversation, you would think that for a moment, after a vigilante was on the street, 17 years old, a Trump supporter recently at a Trump rally, and killed 2 people, you would think that the tone of this conversation could at least acknowledge death, could at least acknowledge that this black man was shot 7 times in his back while his shirt was held in front of his children. And now this man is locked down to his bed after he has certainly paid the sentence for whatever alleged crime they suggest. But instead, we are here talking about Joe Biden and whatever he might have done years ago, instead of what Donald Trump said out of his mouth tonight. Out of both sides of his mouth, he talked tonight, talking about criminal justice reform and then talking about how he's going to shore up more prosecutors and more police in communities where there's rampant violence. Meanwhile, he is the one who is ensuring that vigilante violence is on these streets. We have to be responsible with our rhetoric, and it starts at the top.
Go ahead, Mike.
Well, the question I was asked was about this politically. I mean, we're talking about a convention. We're talking about an election. We're talking about how voters respond to what they're seeing when they see mayors and governors who do not send the police in to stop riots, to stop violence happening, violence of all sides. There was a curfew that should have been enforced.
All sides.
With that person, that person last night or 2 nights ago who killed those people, there was a curfew. The police should never have allowed that to happen. And so that is,
police were working
of
with
course,
them,
that's
Mike.
deplorable.
In the video,
That is a
you
terrible
saw the
thing. I
evidence of
condemn
the
it.
police working with them, coordinating with them,
Yeah,
giving them
I don't,
water.
Yeah, that's something I don't understand. And I said that last night
So
on the
why
air as
didn't the
well.
president
I don't
condemn it?
understand that.
So why didn't he condemn it? You know, Mike, what do you do? What do you do when you're in my situation? You and I are in a situation that Don and Angela aren't in the same way. And I was thinking about this today, about whether or not to bring it up. But what the hell? It's 2:30 in the morning. What do you do? Because I'm sure you got black people in your life. I have black people in my life. When something like Kenosha happens, and a black friend says to me, "What do you think would have happened if it was one of mine?" This is one of the things that started to bother me a lot, that my friends are starting to talk about color again in a way it's never been introduced in my life. Where if it were one of mine, a black friend says to me, walking down the street like that, towards the cops with the long gun, what do you think would have happened?
You know what would have happened.
But I'm saying, how do you deal with that, Mike, when
Chris,
somebody says that to you as a white guy?
I actually agree with you. I really I went through a change in my views. I did a campaign one time. I lived in Alabama, and I saw things that I'd never seen before that made it real for me. Things that I didn't know existed. Racism on a level that I frankly was ignorant to. And I think that a lot of people haven't seen it before and they're ignorant to it. And sometimes you really have to see it to learn it. And it really changed my view on all of these things. I believe that our criminal justice system is not just towards African Americans. I believe that police need more training and these things happen too often. I believe that. I think it is possible to believe that to believe in Black Lives Matter lowercase and not have to believe in Black Lives Matter uppercase, which
What's
is a
the difference?
political movement that I disagree with, that's Marxist.
Hold
And I
on,
also
hold on,
believe
hold
that you
on,
can
hold
talk
What does
about...
that mean?
Hold on.
Angela, hold on. What does
Mike.
that
Well, look at
mean?
what's on their
What does that
website.
mean? What does that mean?
It means that on their website, well, I'll tell you, on their website, the Black Lives Matter organization says that they are essentially socialist. We should defund the police.
It does not say
and
that. It does
I
not
can
say
believe
that.
that a Black Lives
It
Matter,
does not
Black
say that.
Life Matters
Mike,
without having that political
Mike,
agenda.
listen to me. Mike, listen to me. You were in Alabama and you saw racism that you never saw before. I guarantee you it's racism that Don and I and our family members have experienced and seen before. In fact, we saw it at the
Absolutely.
beginning of this segment when you started talking about the wokeness at a convention. Wokeness is consciousness, my friend. It is about the understanding of freedom that would release us from oppression, the very type of oppression that protesters are on the street trying to ensure they're heard about. So when you talk about a wokeness convention, that is an implicit form of bias and it's racist. So I'm telling you that you should be careful with your rhetoric. You lying on Black Lives Matter, Mike, is a form of racism.
Visit their
is
website.
Bigotry. It is
Don't
a
take my
blind
word for it.
spot
Go to
that
their
is
website.
preventing you from telling the truth.
Okay.
It's problematic.
Okay, so Black Lives Matter, as has been said over and over, Mike, for people, especially those who don't want to make some sort of political point, it basically means Black Lives Matter too. That's it. Why can't? What is so hard to accept about that premise?
But I just said that. I said I can believe that lowercase without uppercase.
No, I'm
The
not
organization,
no damn
Marcellus
lowercase.
Wiley. Well, I'm just making a point. I'm being very
What's
careful.
your point
with
about
what
an
I'm trying to make
organization?
a
Hold on,
God.
hold on. But what's your point? Why do you have to make the distinction between a Black Lives Matter and a so-called
It's
organization?
an inferiority point.
Because I think that you can believe that there's racial injustice and we need to do something about it without having to be a socialist or agree with their political agenda to achieve the goal. We just watched the
Christ.
most
What is? I don't
diverse.
understand what a
It's
socialist
We
has
just
to
watched
do
the
with
most diverse-
Black Lives Matter.
Where is the Facts Matter
Republican
banner,
history
Facts
with
First
black-
banner from
with black
CNN right now?
Republicans.
Mike, you're lying. You're just lying. They're not socialists. These people who founded the organization are friends of mine. Pardon my tone, but my God, you are lying on an organization. Your rhetoric is the reason why these people have to have security. Stop. Just stop. You're lying on the organization. It's not socialist
Angela,
to say that Black people should be able to
You're-
live and thrive in this country.
I find it
is
ironic.
not socialist to say that Black people should be paid the same as white people. It is not socialist to say that we want
This
to
is
be
where we
woke
are,
and
guys.
we encourage you to be woke.
You asked
It
me
is
to
not
come on and share-
socialist to say that you
and
should
this
be
is
an
what- this is
ally
how a
and
lot of
stop lying on
conservatives
this
feel.
organization. Stop.
This is how a lot of conservatives feel. The entire 8 years that I opposed Barack Obama, I was called a racist just for opposing Barack Obama. I'm trying to have a conversation with you, represent my views and the views of a lot of conservatives. I get shouted down, I get called a racist, and I'm basically told that my opinion doesn't matter. So
No,
we had a
Mike, what
moment
you're
this
being
summer
told is you're
after
a
George
liar
Floyd was
right
killed.
now.
Let me finish. Angela, please let me finish. We had a moment
you
this
say
summer after
something
George Floyd was
honest?
killed.
Let him finish, Angela.
We had a moment this summer when George Floyd was killed, and I saw something I had never seen. Republicans on social media, friends of mine, so many people saying, I finally get it. I see what's going on. I understand this. And the problem that I saw after that was they were not opened.
Right.
The door was not opened to them. People like Angela do not want us to come and have this conversation with them. They want to shout us down. They don't want to hear our perspective.
Mike, let me ask you this.
And
Mike,
that is
let-
extremely frustrating when you try to have a conversation like that.
Okay, Mike, let me jump in here.